I was called a useless black man by the waitress. What I decided the next day changed everything. Part 1, the decision. The clock above the diner door ticked louder than it should have. Maybe it was the silence that followed the laughter. Maybe it was the way every face turned toward me when she said it. The waitress's voice still echoed in my head, sharp and casual, like a blade that didn't even realize that it cut. Maybe if you worked harder, you wouldn't be just another useless black man waiting for handouts. The mug in my hand had stopped halfway to my mouth. The coffee trembled, just like I did. I remember the look on her face, the smirk, the shrug, the way she wiped her hands on her apron like she just swatted a fly. The manager didn't say a word. Neither did anyone else. And that silence hurt more than her words ever could. My name is Elias Reed, 35 years old, ex-music teacher turned delivery driver, living in a one-bedroom apartment that smelled like fried oil and dreams gone stale. I'd come to Miller's Diner every morning for months. Same booth, same black coffee, same quiet. It was the only place that made me feel human for a few minutes before heading out to haul boxes across town. That morning, though, I didn't feel human at all. Just hollow. I left a tip I couldn't afford, stood up, and walked out. Not a single person looked me in the eye. Outside, the rain had started, slow, heavy drops that hit the pavement like small accusations. I stood there for a long time, my reflection rippling in the puddle beneath my boots. And somewhere between humiliation and heartbreak, something in me shifted. I decided that if the world was going to see me as useless, then I would make sure they'd never forget how wrong they were. That night, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by unpaid bills and notebooks full of unfinished songs. Music used to be my life. I'd taught kids, played in bars, written pieces no one ever heard. But after the school shut down, the gigs dried up, and I fell into the slow crawl of survival. I opened one of the notebooks. Inside were lyrics I'd written years ago. They tried to bury me, but they didn't know I was a seed. I stared at that line for a long time, and that's when I knew what I had to do. I would write again, not for fame, not for forgiveness, but to fight, in the only way I knew how. The next morning, I called in sick. Instead of go to work, I walked to an old, forgotten building on 9th and Harbor, the same one where I used to teach after-school music lessons. The door was boarded up, but the lock was still the same. I still had the key. Inside, the air smelled of dust and echoes. Broken chairs. A piano missing 3 keys. But when I sat down on that old bench, something inside me came back to life. My fingers touched the keys, hesitant at first, then steady. Each note felt like a heartbeat returning after a long silence. I started writing. A melody, slow and aching, then rising like it refused to die. Words followed, about struggle, about dignity, about how it feels to be unseen. Hours passed, then days. I worked until my hands ached and my voice cracked. I posted the song online with no expectation, just a title that said, "For anyone who's ever been called useless." I went to bed that night feeling something I hadn't felt in years, peace. It didn't matter if no one heard it. I had done what I needed to do, but the world had other plans. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. At first, I thought it was spam until I saw the notifications. Thousands of views, hundreds of comments, people sharing the song across platforms. Messages poured in. This made me cry. I needed to hear this today. You don't even know me, but you told my story. By noon, local news outlets were calling. By evening, the video had over 1 million views. And in the middle of that storm of validation and disbelief, there was one message that froze me. It was from her, the waitress. "I saw your video. I don't know what to say. I didn't realize who you were. I'm sorry." For a moment, I didn't know what to feel. Vindication? Anger? Forgiveness? But before I could answer, another message came in from an unknown number. "You're being watched. They're not happy with what you started. Be careful who you talk to." At first, I thought it was a prank, but then I noticed something strange. The comments under my video began to vanish one by one. Then my account was locked, then deleted. In less than an hour, every trace of my song was gone. completely erased. I spent the rest of the night pacing my apartment, replaying every second of the last 24 hours. Someone, somewhere, didn't want that song to exist. I tried uploading it again. Every platform rejected it. File corrupted. Access denied. Violation of content policy. My laptop screen flickered, then went black for a few seconds. When it came back on, a single message glowed in the center of the screen. Stop playing hero. My stomach dropped. How could a simple song threaten anyone? Unless it wasn't about the song at all. The next morning, I went back to the diner. Same booth, same coffee, same waitress. When she saw me, she froze. Her eyes were red, from crying, maybe from fear. "Elias," she whispered, "you shouldn't be here." "Why not?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. She looked around nervously, then leaned closer. "Because after your song went viral, 2 men came here asking about you. They showed badges. Said they were from the Department of Public Communication, or something. They wanted to know if you've been in contact. In contact with who? I don't know," she said. But they looked scared. Not angry, scared. My chest tightened. What else did they say? "They told me to give you this." She slid a small white envelope across the counter. Inside was a business card, blank except for a single line printed in embossed silver letters. "If you want answers, come to 411 Crescent Avenue at midnight. SR." I looked up at her, but she'd already turned away. That night, I sat in my car outside the address, an old, abandoned library on the edge of the industrial district. Every window was dark. Every instinct screamed that this was a bad idea. But curiosity, and something deeper, kept me there. I stepped inside. The floorboards creaked beneath my boots. Dust floated through beams of moonlight. Then I heard a voice from the shadows. "Mr. Reed." I froze. A figure stepped forward, a woman mid-40s, dressed in a gray coat. Her eyes were sharp but not unkind. "My name is Serena Rowe," she said. "I used to work with your father." "My father?" I blinked. "He was a mechanic." "That's what you were told," she said quietly. "But he wasn't just fixing engines. He was building something much bigger, something they shut down when he refused to let them use it for control." She paused, then took a small flash drive from her pocket and placed it on the table. "This is his last project," she said. "He wanted you to have it." My heart pounded. "What is it?" She smiled sadly. "Proof that your song wasn't just music. It was a trigger. You woke up something your father created 20 years ago, something the government's been trying to bury ever since." I stared at the flash drive, unsure whether to touch it or run from it. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means," she whispered, glancing toward the door, "you have no idea what you started." Before I could respond, headlights cut through the dusty windows. Blinding, urgent. She looked at me, eyes wide. "They found us." "Who?" She grabbed my hand, pressed the flash drive into my palm, and whispered, "Run." Then she turned toward the door, pulling a small silver pistol from her coat as footsteps echoed outside. I ran through the back exit, heart hammering, rain slashing my face as I sprinted into the dark. Behind me came a single gunshot, then silence. I didn't look back. That night, I hid in an alley, drenched and trembling, staring at the flash drive. Whatever was on it, whatever my father had built, whatever Serena had died for, it was now in my hands. And I knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow, I wouldn't be the same man I was when that waitress called me useless. Tomorrow, the world would know my name. Part 2, The Secret in the Song. Rain pounded against the cracked windshield as I sat in my car, gripping the flash drive Serena Rowe had given me. Her last words kept echoing in my head. "You woke up something your father created." The sentence didn't make sense. My father had died when I was 15, a quiet, gentle man who loved blues music and fixed old engines for neighbors who couldn't pay. He'd never built anything other than trust. But Serena's fear was real. And that gunshot, I couldn't shake it. By dawn, I was still awake. I replayed everything. The waitress, the song, the vanishing video, Serena's warning. And finally, I plugged in the flash drive. The laptop screen flickered, then loaded a single folder, Project Siren. Inside were dozens of encrypted files, sound wave patterns, coded messages, and something labeled read_algorithm_v1. My hands trembled as I opened it. What appeared wasn't music, but data, hundreds of sequences combining audio frequencies with emotional response markers. At the bottom of the file was a video clip, time-stamped March 17th, 2002. My father's face appeared on screen. He looked older than I remembered, his hair streaked with gray, his eyes tired but determined. "If you're watching this, Eli," he began, "then they found me." I tried to stop them. God knows I tried. He took a breath, glancing off-screen as if someone was coming. Project Siren was supposed to help people heal. Music therapy, emotional calibration, memory restoration. But the government saw something else, control. They wanted to weaponize empathy, turn emotion into obedience. He leaned closer to the camera. "The code I wrote can amplify emotions through sound, real-time mood manipulation. They wanted to broadcast it. But I hid the key, disguised inside a song. Your song, Eli, you were only a child when I recorded it with you. You remember? That lullaby you used to hum?" My heart stopped. He smiled faintly. "That melody carries the access pattern. I buried it in the code. No one can activate Siren without it. That's why they'll come for you." He looked straight into the camera now, his voice breaking. "If you ever hear that song again, don't listen. It means they've already found it." The screen went black. I sat there frozen, the rain outside fading to silence. All this time, my music, the thing that kept me alive, had also been the trigger. The viral song I'd uploaded wasn't just art. It was activation. Serena hadn't been exaggerating. I had literally woken something buried for decades. By noon, I'd packed a bag and left the apartment. I didn't know who was after me, government, private contractors, or something between, but I knew I couldn't stay still. I drove west toward the edge of town, the flash drive hidden in my jacket. As I passed the diner, I saw the waitress, Lila, standing outside, pale and anxious. When she spotted me, she rushed over, waving frantically. "Elias, wait." I rolled down the window. "You shouldn't talk to me." "I have to," she said, breathless. "They came back. 2 men. One of them showed me a photo of you and said, 'He's carrying the voice.'" "What does that mean?" My stomach twisted. "They said the voice?" She nodded. "They asked about your music, your computer, everything." I told them I didn't know anything. I rubbed my temples. "You did the right thing. Listen, Lila, if anyone asks again, tell them you haven't seen me." Her eyes welled up. "Elias, who are you really?" I wanted to tell her the truth, that I was just a man trying to make something beautiful in a world that had forgotten how to listen. But I couldn't. "I'm someone who made a mistake," I said quietly. Then I drove away. That night, I checked into a motel off Route 12. The walls were thin, the bed smelled of mildew, and the TV barely worked, but it was quiet. I opened the flash drive again and began decoding the files my father had left. Hidden inside the data were fragments of audio, distorted sounds like voices layered over static. When I cleaned them up using my old mixing software, I heard something that sent chills down my spine. A woman's voice, soft, melodic, singing my melody. But behind it, faintly, was another sound, a pulse, like a heartbeat mixed into the rhythm. Then, just before the file ended, a whisper, "Elias," they're still using it. "Find the conductor." The file cut off. I rewound it 3 times, trying to make sense of what I'd heard. Find the conductor. Who was that? A person? A code name? Someone controlling the system? The next morning, I got my answer. When I stepped outside to grab breakfast, a newspaper vending machine caught my eye. Across the front page was a headline that nearly made me drop the cup of coffee in my hand. National broadcast interrupted. Thousands report sudden emotional distress during music segment. Below the headline was a still image from the televised concert that had aired the night before, a charity event broadcast worldwide. The performer was a woman, dark hair, pale eyes, The caption read, Dr. Celeste Voss, conductor of the Harmony Project. The Harmony Project. The word harmony hit me like lightning. A modern rebranding. Maybe Project Siren's public face. And there she was, the conductor. I spent the next 2 days tracking every interview, every speech, every performance by Dr. Voss. The more I watched, the more I noticed subtle patterns in her music. Repeated chord progressions matching the ones from my father's algorithm. She was using his work, broadcasting it under a new name. Only now, it wasn't about therapy or healing. It was about control. The emotional distress people felt during her televised performance, it was no accident. It was a live test. She had found the key, my song. By the third day, I knew what I had to do. I drove to the city where Dr. Voss was scheduled to hold her next concert, New York. On the way, I stopped at a rest area to check my messages. One new email, sent from a private server with no sender listed. Subject, you're late. Attached, a photo of me leaving the motel that morning. And below it, a single sentence. They already know you're coming. My hands shook as I closed my laptop. Outside, a black SUV passed slowly, headlights off. I waited until it disappeared before pulling back onto the road. When I reached the city, it was chaos. Crowds gathering outside the Madison Center for the Arts, where the Harmony Live event was being held. Security was tight. Drones hovered above, scanning faces. I watched from across the street, the flash drive still in my pocket, my father's words echoing in my mind. If you ever hear that song again, don't listen. And then, faintly, carried on the air from the speakers, I heard it, my melody, slow, beautiful, haunting, and underneath it, that same pulse. The sound wasn't just music. It was a signal. Around me, people began to sway slightly, their eyes glazing over, expression softening. I realized then she wasn't performing for entertainment. She was activating them. Project Siren was alive again. I forced my way through the crowd, shouting, "Stop the music! She's controlling you." No one reacted. Security guards turned toward me, their faces blank, movements robotic. A hand clamped on my shoulder. I spun around and froze. It was Agent Pierce, the same man who'd been at Serena's safe house before she was killed. The same gray eyes, the same calm smile. "Elias," he said softly, "I told you to stop playing hero." I tried to pull away, but he leaned closer, whispering so only I could hear. "You think you're fighting them? You are them. Your father built the key, but you are the voice. Without you, the system doesn't work." "What are you talking about?" I hissed. He smiled. "Dr. Voss doesn't know it yet, but you're the one she's been searching for. The final frequency, the human component." Then he held up a small earpiece and whispered, "Welcome to the orchestra, Mr. Reed." He pressed it into my hand and vanished into the crowd. I looked back at the stage. Dr. Voss raised her baton. The crowd grew still, as if holding its breath. And when the next note hit, I felt something deep inside me vibrate. Not sound, but recognition. The code, the melody, my father's work. All of it resonating through me like I was part of it, like I'd been born for it. I stumbled backward, tearing out the earpiece, but it was too late. The sound was inside me now. The world tilted, colors flickering like static. Somewhere in the blur, I heard my father's voice, faint but clear, like, "If you hear the song, don't let them finish it." Then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was backstage. The music had stopped. Dr. Voss stood over me, her expression calm but curious. "Elias Reed," she said softly, "welcome back. We've been waiting a long time." She reached down, touching the side of my head, and whispered, "It's time to finish what your father started." The lights flared white. The crowd outside began to chant in unison, one voice, one rhythm. And I realized, with growing horror, that they weren't cheering. They were singing my melody. Part 3, the song that could end the world. When I woke up, the air was humming. It wasn't just sound, it was vibration. The same pitch that had filled the concert hall. The melody, my melody. Except now it was everywhere. In the walls, the floor, the pulse of my veins. I sat up slowly. Bright light seared my eyes. I was in a glass chamber, surrounded by glowing consoles and people in white coats. Above me, suspended like a crown, a ring of metal discs spun slowly, projecting thin beams of blue light. Dr. Celeste Voss stood outside the glass, watching me. "Good morning, Elias," she said. "You've been unconscious for 20 hours. Your neural frequencies are extraordinary." I pressed my palms to glass. "Where am I?" She smiled faintly. "Inside the resonance chamber, the place your father designed. Decades ago, he never saw it finished. But you will." My stomach turned. "You're using my song to control people." "Not control," she corrected gently. "Align. The human race is fractured, drowning in noise and conflict. Siren can change that. It's not a weapon, Elias. It's harmony." I laughed bitterly. "Harmony through hypnosis." Her expression didn't change. "You call it hypnosis. I call it evolution." I stood slowly, still dizzy. "What do you want from me?" "You already know," she said. "Your voice is a final key. The algorithm your father wrote reacts only to your DNA pattern. You complete the sequence." She pressed a button. The walls around me flickered to life, displaying video feeds, city streets, schools, hospitals. Everywhere, people were humming the same tune. Mine. Some were crying, others smiling blankly, as if under a spell. "This is what happens when chaos meets order," Dr. Voss said. "The world finally feels one emotion, unity. Imagine erasing hatred, war, prejudice. With a single song." My throat tightened. "You're erasing choice." She tilted her head. "Choice built this chaos." A door opened behind her. Agent Pierce stepped in, his black suit immaculate, face calm as ever. "Status?" she asked. "Stage 3 activation complete," he replied. "Global synchronization in 32 hours. The prototype subject is stable." She nodded toward me. "Not for long. Prepare the link." Pierce looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Elias, don't fight this. It's bigger than you." I met his gaze. "You killed Serena Rowe." He blinked, then said quietly, "She betrayed the cause. Your cause is slavery." He sighed. "Our cause is peace. You'll understand soon." They left me alone in the chamber, the hum of machines deepening into rhythm. I could feel the frequencies pressing against my mind, soft but persistent, like someone whispering behind glass. And then I heard it, my father's voice, faint through the static of memory, not from a speaker, but from somewhere inside me. Still I remember the silence. Silence, the one thing Siren couldn't produce. It was built to amplify emotion, not stop it. If I could overload the system, cancel the signal, maybe I could end it. But that meant using my voice. The one thing they wanted. The glass door hissed open. Pierce entered, holding a small headset, sleek, silver, pulsing with light. "Time," he said simply. I took a step back. "What happens if I refuse?" He hesitated. "Then billions will keep singing without control, without structure. Their brains will burn out in less than 2 days. You're the only one who can stabilize it. So I fix their mess or let the world destroy itself." "That's right." He handed me the headset. "Your father created beauty," he said softly. "Don't let his work end in pain." For a second, I saw something in his eyes. Guilt. Maybe fear. Then he turned and left. They brought me to the main chamber, a cathedral of machinery and light. Dozens of people sat in pods along the walls, connected by wires, their eyes closed. At the center stood a platform with a single microphone, simple, old-fashioned, like something from a 1950s radio station. Dr. Voss stood beside it. "Elias," she said, "this is your stage." I stared at the mic, "And if I sing, the resonance will spread through every network, every device. Your song will become the universal frequency of emotion. And if I don't," she smiled sadly, "then the world dies confused and angry, the same way it's lived." She gestured toward the microphone. I walked toward it slowly. Every memory I had, my father's laugh, my mother's prayers, the waitress's cruel words, all collided in my chest. I was no savior, just a man who wrote a song. But maybe that was enough. I closed my eyes, and I began to sing. The melody started softly, the same lullaby my father wrote when I was a child. For a moment, the air warmed, vibrating with emotion. Dr. Voss's eyes widened. "Yes," she whispered. "That's it. The world is listening." I felt the current pulling at me, thousands, millions of minds linking together through sound. Joy, sorrow, rage, hope, all bleeding into one river feeling. It was beautiful and terrifying. But then I remembered his words again. If you ever hear that song, don't let them finish it. I stopped mid-note. The machines began to flicker. Dr. Voss's smile faltered. "Why did you stop?" I opened my eyes. "Because harmony without freedom is noise." She reached for the control panel. "Don't." I took a deep breath. And then I screamed. Not a melody. Not music. Just silence turned inside out. A raw, dissonant sound, the opposite of harmony. The lights exploded. The machines wailed like dying metal. Sparks showered around me as the glass walls shattered. Dr. Voss fell to her knees, clutching her ears. I kept going, pouring every ounce of grief and rage into that sound until everything went white. When I opened my eyes again, the chamber was gone. The city was quiet. Too quiet. I stumbled outside. The sky was gray, heavy, but calm. No music. No hum. People were standing still in the streets, confused, blinking, whispering to each other as if waking from a long dream. Had it worked? Then I saw a giant screen flicker to life across the street. Dr. Voss's face appeared, calm and composed, though her eyes were different, colder. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "the interference has been neutralized. The system has adapted. The new harmony begins now." Behind her, I heard my melody, slower, deeper, mechanical. They had rebuilt it. I ran, through alleys, across empty streets, until I reached the old music shop where my father used to work. Inside, dust covered everything. The piano in the corner was out of tune, but when I pressed one key, the sound rang clear. And from somewhere in the back room, a faint voice spoke. "You did well, Eli." I froze. The voice was unmistakable. "Dad." A shadow stepped forward, not flesh, not ghost, but a projection flickering like light through smoke. "You stopped them," he said, "but they've only begun to listen." I stepped closer. "What do I do now?" He smiled faintly. "Find the next verse." The projection faded, leaving only silence, and the piano notes still vibrating through the air. I sat there in the quiet, feeling the city tremble faintly with the first echoes of the new broadcast. Maybe I'd bought humanity time. Maybe I'd doomed it again. Either way, one truth pulsed through the silence like a heartbeat. The song wasn't over. And neither was I. The end, for now,